Hi there, I'm Georgie Wisen-Vincent from the PlayStrong Institute at the Center for Connection. I'm a play therapist, a parenting consultant, a speaker, and a mom. And over the last 2 decades, I've spent a lot of time studying things like parenting, child rearing theory, attachment, and the one I'm most excited about, the science of play. I have learned so much about how the playful brain can inspire families to get the best from their kids on a daily basis. And I'm just excited to be able to share some of that with you today. I'm not going to be able to tell you everything because I'm probably going to talk for about 20 to 30 minutes. But what I'm even more excited about is that I've been invited by the folks at Echo Parenting and Education to come and do a whole series on trauma resilient play for you. What do I mean by that exactly? Well, because I am a play therapist, one of the things that I do know is that the research is pointing to how much we need to actually give our kids really short bursts of high quality attention and connection throughout the day. And it's something that I've been telling parents for a really long time. And the challenge that we run into is that parents are busy and parents are putting so much into just taking care of their kids every day. And I want to be able to share some of the tips and the tricks that I've used over the years. I've really taken what I do as a play therapist and I've boiled it down into a few strategies that are meant to make your job easier as a parent, to help you show up and kindle a stronger attachment with your child that makes them want to do more of the things that we ask them to do, to cooperate within the family and with their siblings, and that makes them happier, more joyful, more successful people in the long run. And we've decided to call this approach PlayStrong because we're really building stronger kids that are more resilient and able to take on adversity with sort of a can-do attitude, as well as building resilience within families, because we are teaching parents, we're teaching professionals who work with kids how to become that one secure, positive attachment figure in a child's life that they can come back to over and over again and form a working model, like, a mental image of this loving, gentle, and also, fun and playful person that has helped, put them on the path toward being not only good but great. I'm going to turn over to a little presentation that I sometimes use to start off the series of talks that I'm going to be doing at Echo. I'm going to be able to share bits and pieces with you today, but this is only scratching the surface of what I want to be able to offer you. So I hope you will join and sign up for the Trauma Resilient Play series at Echo. So why don't we go ahead and get started? I'm going to share screen with you here so you can see what I'm seeing. Here we go. I'm just somebody who likes understanding the brain, and I like understanding what's happening to our kids when we set out to not just deal with behavior, not just why do you keep fighting with your sister, or what is the deal? Why can't you just brush your teeth? All those things that even for me and my son, we're going through together on a daily basis. But how do we really instill the skills that we want to see in our kids for years to come? I'm thinking about how we build resilience. And we know that resilience starts with connection. Like I just said, it only takes one grown-up in your life that makes you feel like you are the most loved person on the planet. It starts with this kind of connection. And that connection, we don't have to wait until our kids are teenagers to start working on this. It can start from the moment that they're born. We are already creating a bond with our babies And some people that believe that already happens when they're in the womb, right? That we are already starting to form this lasting bond with our children, that it really starts with the connection and how we're shaping our connection with our kids as they're growing up and as their minds are developing, right? So one of the things that I always want to bring to the table when I'm talking with parents or when I'm working together with, social workers or educators or child life specialists or, doctors, anybody that provides care for children, is that I really want to lay out what our primary goals are here because, contrary to how I was initially taught as a mental health professional, my main goal is not just to make kids do what I want them to do or to change behavior, but it's really to start with strengthening the relationships that already exist within the family. Who are your child's primary connections is based on the way we come to them and help them get regulated in their emotions, that we can help teach them emotional balance and also how to bounce back from things that they may feel kind of knocked down by. I really want to help families raise children who go, you know what, let me stop, let me think about this, let me be open to adults and what they have to teach. And let's just lay out all my options and see what I'd be willing to try. And then kids who are ready to go in and get back in there and try it again. We have started calling this at the PlayStrong Institute kind of trauma Teflon or resilience, like kids bounce and their willingness to just, okay, what do I got to do to get back in there? I want to try that again, and I want it to go better the next time, because we're seeing such a much higher rate of stress and anxiety that might even turn into depression and traumatization in our kids if we don't address all of the things that I'm just laying out here for you. We really want to instill these things as early as possible in kids' lives. So this kind of healthy communication really, we know from the research, begins with the experiences that we share with our children. Oftentimes kids tell me, because we have time to spend together in the playroom, they often tell me, I want more time with my mom. I really want to go outside and be with my dad. I want to be with the adults in my life, but oftentimes they can be so serious. Like, why do my mom and dad have to be so serious? Why can't they just, relax a little bit? I need that. What I need most from my parents or my caregivers is I just want time spent together where it doesn't look like we're doing a whole lot, but it means so much to me. When I was a new mom, my son was, I'll just tell a little story here. My son was probably 7 months, 8 months old. So I was a really new mom. I'd never done this before. And it was one of the first times I ever ventured out of the house. It was just, I was overwhelmed. There's just so much to learn in those first few months of your child's life. So I've got the baby in the stroller and my hair's pulled up in a bun and I'm wearing sweatpants. And I was just proud of myself because I had got out of the house for a little while. And I decided I'm just going to go to the mall. I'm going to walk around. I'm going to get myself a drink and a snack and talk to my son about some of the things that we're seeing as we're walking through some shops, be a little kind to myself, do some self-care. And, because I'd spent the last, 9 months of my pregnancy and the next couple of months with no sleep and with a whole stack of parenting books on my nightstand that I was flipping through, and I was trying to learn as much as I could. And one of the people that I had turned to over and over again to sort of help me on my new parenting journey was Tina Payne Bryson, who has written a series of parenting books with Daniel Siegel. Their first book is called The Whole Brain Child, and their second book, No Drama Discipline, came out not long after that. And now I'm out on this day at the mall with my baby, and I turn in one of the stores and look to my right, and I actually see Tina Bryson shopping. just next to me. And I had one of those moments where, you see kind of a celebrity where you don't want to call too much attention to the fact that you know who they are, but you also really, really want to meet them. So I walked over with my sweatpants and my, mom bun. And I asked her, could I just, could I say hello? I'm just a mom. I'm a play therapist. I just had a baby. And Tina was very gracious, and we got to talking, and that talking turned into a lunch, and then Tina said, Georgie, you're a play therapist, and we need people like you at the Center for Connection, our multidisciplinary practice where we see kids and families and adults and couples. And one of the things that we'd like to do is to kind of strengthen the leadership around working with children. And so would you come on board as a play therapist? And I was, it took me about 2 seconds before I said yes. And so I want to also offer what Tina has done in her work with Dan Siegel to you. It's definitely benefited me. And it's something that I continue to integrate in my work, is this idea that understanding the way that our kids' brains are developing and how to nurture their growing minds are really important and should be kind of central to what we do in parenting and in our work. Even for me as a clinician, when I'm working with children, I'm very guided by, number one, what is the skill that I'm teaching? And number two, what's the best way to teach this skill given where this child is in their development? And so I offer that, I offer these resources to you as well. I also wanted to let you know you can learn more about Tina and our work at the Center for Connection at the websites here, and the PlayStrong Institute as well below that. But let me tell you a little bit more about the work of a play therapist, because I remember hearing stories after 9/11, this big national crisis. Families are hard pressed to try and figure out how to talk to their kids about something difficult that has affected our country, is affecting our country. How do we find the words, or what do we do with our faces when we're so anxious and worried about what's going on out there? How do we share honestly with our kids without overwhelming them too with what's happening? So after 9/11 happened, I was, just starting out in mental health, and I remember hearing a story of some children that were working with therapists at the NYU Child Study Center. And I offer this photo here of some artwork that came out of those times, that kids who had been affected by the trauma, this shaking up of our stability. And some of these kids had actually even, witnessed events unfolding firsthand when, the airplanes crashed into the Twin Towers. And play therapists at this clinic would sit down in a setting very much like what you see behind me here. And they would use specific techniques, not just to play for fun with children, but to offer them a space where they could express all of their feelings about what was going on without judgment, to be able to have a different means of communication around that. Because as we know, when something really, really hard hits children, the language centers of the brain are some of the last to really develop. And so children don't always have the words to express, to kind of sit down on a sofa and hash it out with a therapist about talking about everything that they feel and how it's affected them and what they see their families going through. And so play offers us a different mode of communication as well, that these play therapists were able to tap into with children. And as you can see from this picture, there are Twin Towers being represented here for these two little boys, Paul and Julian, that they, in their imagination, in their play with the play therapist, that they were able to use some of the toys and materials to build up the Twin Towers, in addition to other types of play that they were doing I heard one story about children who had used blocks and zoo animals to actually build, and I've got some of those things here to show you because I really like to depict it. So imagine that these children had built block towers kind of over and over again, because that's what kids do. They sort of repeat what's difficult over and over again in their play when they're trying to figure it out and make meaning of what's happening, especially when it's confusing and it's really hard to wrap your young mind around what's going on. So anyway, that they had built these block towers, and then over and over again, they would, probably in traumatized play, they would have, crashed the towers and crumbled them over and over again. Kids had either seen this in the media or they had overheard adults talking about it, but they knew that the country had suffered a loss, and so they were crashing towers down. And after a certain number of repetitions of doing this, then play therapists were able to get in there and provide more clarity and a safe space in order for kids to start to think about solutions. And this is what amazes me about children, is that they're able to think of the most creative solutions when their imaginations are allowed to run wild. And so what these kids did was they could not help themselves but try and think of what they could do to help. And it reminds me a little bit of when Mr. Rogers, in his neighborhood used to say things like, in order to help kids through difficult things, we need to help them find the helpers, right? They need to know who the helpers are. And in this case, the helpers were imagined by these kids. And you know what they did? So it gives me the chills every time I tell the story. So let's imagine that a child had decided they were going to rebuild the Twin Towers with what they had. So they had these blocks, and they had some wild animals, animal figures, little plastic animals. And so they said, in my game, we're going to release all of the zoo animals from the New York Zoo, and the zoo animals are going to help us rebuild the towers. So maybe they took a cheetah from the zoo, and they had the cheetah rebuild one block. Let's say they had a horse who was going to come along and build another one. Yeah. And maybe they had the lion come and help, and the sheep was going to come along and bring another block, right? So these animals are all getting involved, and by the end of this, they had rebuilt the towers, and the kids could step away from their work. And what we noticed was when kids could find their own solution to the problem and enact that in their play, we noticed a reduction or even a complete disappearance of their trauma symptoms. Things like not being able to eat, not being able to sleep, being very vigilant and looking out for danger, feeling less of a sense of trust in adults to take care of them, sometimes regressive behavior where they may have been potty trained and then regressed on that, or maybe wetting the bed, things like that. We were noticing a skyrocketing of symptoms like that in kids in the immediate aftermath of 9/11. But for those kids at the clinic who were able to repair what had happened using the power of their imagination and this safe relationship with the play therapist, they knocked it out of the park. Their trauma symptoms went away almost completely. And so that is an amazing example of the power of using play in therapy in order to help kids overcome adversity by finding what they believe is going to be most helpful to them. And we know that in reality, the Twin Towers have not been rebuilt. It doesn't have to be a real solution. In fact, there's a memorial there at the place where the towers fell. But isn't it amazing that children have this innate ability, this biological drive to find solutions and to be able to repair even faster than the adults, right? Their imaginations are astounding to me. So that's what we use as play therapists. And after I heard that story, I knew if I could just find a way, or if many of us in this community could just find a way to teach at least one adult in every child's life how to use these same skills. And it's not rocket science. It's not really, really hard to do. I thought if we can take that and help kids feel stronger and use what is already a natural strength about where they are in their development, to be another kind of communication, so we can break through things like fears and anxiety and stress and distress and trauma. Wouldn't that be an amazing thing to build up every child's resilience that way? And so with PlayStrong, we've broken it down into 3 really, really simple categories of what we're trying to help change. One is that we want parents, families, and the rest of us grown-ups who work with kids as well, or those of us who are caring for other people's children, can we build relationships where we can see more deeply into the minds of children using play as kind of a window? So that's the first thing. The next thing is, can we help children experience, because play enables us to have this back and forth interaction with a child that's almost like moment by moment, gives us opportunities to look at one another. Like you can see this mom and her little one right here, to really look at each other and to really make the most of the moment by moment interactions that we have together, because everything during a typical week in family life can get so harried and so busy. And how often do we just really slow down and really look at our kids and take them in a different way? That this is the key to teaching our kids also how to slow down, to be more reflective and calm, to be able to see their own emotions, and to be able to share their emotions in a way that adults can actually take in, can help with, instead of it turning into, big blow-ups, mini meltdowns, the behavior that we all really, we want to be there for our kids, but that can be really, really hard and taxing on a parent-child relationship. So how can we use the serve and return interactions of play, almost like I've got the ball, now you have it. Now, what if I do this? Now, how about if we try it this way? Do you want to do this with me? Yes. How about we do it this other way? The serve and return interactions that play offers us gives us a bigger, wider surface area of having moments to teach our kids how to help them learn new skills in a state where they're most open, their minds are most open to what we have to say, to what we're doing, because they're paying such close attention to us. They're looking at us like, oh my gosh, I just want to be with you. I love being with you. What you do during this time has a major impact on me. And this is some of the key to calmer emotional regulation. That's what we call helping kids go from a state of maybe not being at their best to getting into a better state of calm, so they can be open to learn and discover and try. And then the last part, the third category of what we're really trying to impact for children with PlayStrong or trauma resilient play is to help them develop a sense that, when things get hard, I handle it by doing, and then this is what I do, or I know that these are the people in my corner that are going to be able to help me get through this and overcome this adversity because I am resilient. I have a positive attitude. I can see solutions all around me. And I don't give up. And guess what? If I do fail, if I do, make a mistake, I know that that's not going to be the end of the world, that I can get back up again and I can try something different, or I can try a little harder, and I will be able to emerge from this, like a little better, a little stronger. So I want to share the first PlayStrong strategy with you. I hope this is something that you feel that you can take away and immediately use. It's really easy. It's actually so simple you might even laugh. And for some of you, you might be intuitively doing it already. So if you are already, without even thinking about it, you're using this strategy, I thank you. I applaud you. Keep it up. You're doing a great job. But for those of you who find it a little harder to get into the play mode, that don't usually have enough time to set aside for play together with your child, I want to offer this up to you. Just give this, set a timer and try this for a couple of minutes with your child today or tomorrow and see how it makes a difference. So I'm going to teach you the very first strategy. It's called Think Out Loud. And so imagine that you've just told your child, I'm going to set a timer where we'll spend about 5 minutes together. I really want to give you my best attention. I want you to be able to decide what we do together during this time. And let's imagine that your child chooses to play with blocks, because I have some blocks here. So let's imagine that your child says, okay, I'm going to build something. And you're watching them put this together, and they set one block down at the bottom, and let's say they put another block on top of it like this. And then on the end, they choose a triangle block right here. And you're going, okay, you're building something. Okay, all right. You see them putting this together. And then at the very end, they decide to place a car right there on top. All right. So to think out loud with your child, all you have to do is shift your attention, pay attention to what they're doing. What are they making? What are they building? What are they putting together? What are their ideas? And then imagine that there's a thought bubble forming above your child's head. And what would be in their thought bubble? Because a lot of times kids are playing on autopilot. The lower brain is firing on all cylinders, and they're thinking away, but they're not really explaining what they're doing in a way that's going to connect the both of you. And so it's your job to lend them your prefrontal cortex. You're going to be thinking about what's going on in their thought bubble as you're playing together. And imagine that your child just built all of this, and they've done this, and they're at this point, and you have a little moment where you could say something that's going to bring the two of you closer. And really what I want you to do is you're just going to be communicating to your child that you're curious and you're paying attention to what might be going on inside their brain, in their thought bubble. So what are they thinking? When you look at this, what would you say that this is? I'll just give you a second. What do you think this is? Right, so if you said, looks like a ramp, or looks like you made a ramp, you might be correct. We should definitely check it out with your child and see if that's what their intention was. But the very act of trying to figure out what's going on in the mind of another person is a little bit like Daniel Siegel's concept of mind sight. That is one of the key ingredients, he says, to being really good at human relationships, but also more successful as parents. So if we can bring that into our play with our child, we have a wider surface area to communicate to our children that we see them, that we want to know what they think, and that we want to teach them how to share their calm thinking with us. This is an amazing skill that really evens out a lot of the bumps sometimes that parents experience when you're trying to play with your child and you're trying to ask questions, or you're trying to engage them like, hey, I'm here. I'm here to play with you. Or other times when kids are being really bossy and trying to tell us what to do all the time, they may be doing some of that because they don't know if we're really there. And they want to make sure that we're showing up and that we're with them, right? Are you paying attention, Mom? Are you here, Dad? Do you see what I'm doing? So a way that we can alleviate that, those sort of bumps, is that we can think out loud with our kids. And this does there are three benefits to this that I want you to know about. One, we can get bored really quickly playing with our kids. It's been a long time since we had that kind of enthusiasm for getting on the floor and taking out our toys and building things, or getting into that pretend mode. So the first benefit of thinking out loud with your kids is that suddenly you have switched on your attention. You've almost tricked your brain into being more mindful and giving your child more presence than you may have felt just a minute before. So just, using this part of the brain to think out loud with your child gets your brain in the mode to be more connected, which is what we want. The second thing that this does for us, the second benefit, is that it gives your child the sense that they are in your loving presence, that this tells your child, it communicates to your child that you're here. And I have to say that when children experience the adult that they're with thinking out loud, you can see that it takes them to a new place. You can see that they start smiling a little bit more. They might look at you and go, "Oh, yeah, how did you know that?" That's right, I was building a ramp. You see that they open up more, that they share more, and that they get a sense that we are really there, as opposed to just kind of trying to be there, but feeling, like we're dying of boredom. And then the third benefit of thinking out loud is that it creates an opportunity to teach our kids how to share their thinking with others in a really calm and organized way. And from every parent that I've ever spoken to, that would be on the list of things that they really want to teach their kids as their kids grow and get older. We need to be able to share our thinking with other people and to be able to keep our emotions calm while we do it, because that's the way that we get stuff done. We can sort out our conflicts. We can share our opinions. We can imagine our kids growing up into very well-functioning adults if they learn that you can share your thoughts with other people. You can let them know how you think, how you feel, what you think and how you feel, and that there can be an exchange of ideas in that way, and that can extend into times as well when our kids are feeling like they can't express their thoughts very calmly. So I want to tell you the story of a boy that I had worked with. He was about 5 years old. This is a number of years ago now. And he really, really needed to learn how to think out loud because he was having a really hard time. His parents were kind of at the end of their rope in dealing with some of his anxiousness and his aggressive behavior, particularly toward his 2-year-old sister. And this little boy really loved to do block building, but the problem was he was very worried about anyone getting too close to what he was working on, getting too close to what he was building, especially his 2-year-old sister. And as we know, 2-year-olds are built to take things apart, to knock things down, and to learn how to destroy before they can learn how to build things back up. And so it was going to take a while for this 2-year-old to be able to build as successfully as her older brother, because that's just where 2-year-olds are at. But it really got to him, and these parents had sort of, by the time they got to me, they had made a decision to keep their 2 children separated for most of the day because they were worried that the 5-year-old's temper was going to flare up and he might attack his little sister, which was happening actually several times a day. And so he really needed to learn how to calmly express what he was feeling, but also to be able to ask for help or share his thoughts with others. And so I spent a lot of time thinking out loud with him. I spent so much time thinking out loud with him, in fact, that he started to do it for himself. So not only was he, putting things together like this and, saying, hey, Georgie, I'm building a ramp. Check this out. He would change things up. He might instead put a little animal or a person on top and say, no, it's a slide this time. Watch. Whee! Or he would build it higher, right? So he'd add maybe another layer to all of this, and he'd build it taller up here, and then he'd say, look what the car's going to do next. And I'd say, I wonder if it's going to go faster this time. And I'd have a little, conspiratorial look on my face, I wonder if it's going to go a little faster this time. And I wasn't trying to label his play. I'm trying to get this communication going. I want him to tell me more about what he's about to do. I want him to know that I'm interested in his intention in his play. And so he'd go, oh, let's see. And then he'd put the car on top and it might zoom down faster and he'd say, yes, we did it. So moment by moment, we had the experience together of him almost like reworking the way his brain would naturally go into sort of automatic responding. He'd be flying off the handle really fast. And even he didn't want to be reacting that way after a moment of losing control over himself. He would say he really didn't want to be doing those things. He wants to be able to stop his brain from making his body do these things as well. So as we practiced thinking out loud together, what we started to notice was that not only could he do this great communicating when he was calm, but he started to be able to think out loud for himself, even when his 2-year-old sister would come in the room. And even when she might try and grab that almighty triangular block that was so crucial for building ramps, right? And he could slow himself down, and at one point he turned to his mom and he said, could you help me get that back from her? Because I was going to build a ramp. Whoa. This 5-year-old had learned how to share his thinking calmly because we had been thinking out loud, because we've been practicing. And kids need repetition to practice these skills. And what better time to do it is when they are in a calm, receptive state that play helps them enter into, right? And so he felt safe to practice in his play. He felt good about himself practicing in his play. And so he was able to form an association. He was able to even transfer that skill into moments where his dander was getting up a little bit, that you could feel his emotions rising a little bit. And he learned that saying what's in your mind, saying what's on your mind is a powerful and effective way to change something that you don't like. And I just have to say, I've been impressed over and over again when I see families who already know how to think out loud with each other, who practice this in their play, or when I've been teaching families how to think out loud together while they're spending quality time hanging out together, that I notice a shift, that I notice that families are more interested in one another. I find that there's just a little bit more breathing space from a trigger to a reaction, right? That children and parents alike can slow themselves down and formulate a response that involves sharing their thinking instead of kind of flipping their lids and flying off the handle, and that they're more able to communicate with each other in ways that they can be proud of.